about the giraffe. It's an animal we all feel like we know, right? It's so familiar, it's almost mythical, like something straight out of a storybook. But, behind that iconic shape and those gentle eyes is an incredible story of evolutionary extremes, biological puzzles, and a social life that's way more complex than you'd ever imagine. So let's get into it, because what we think we know about the giraffe, well, that's just scratching the surface.
I mean, it's the first thing anyone thinks of, that impossible, gravity-defying neck. And for centuries, the answer seemed super obvious. They evolved it to reach the highest, tastiest leaves. But as it turns out, the real story behind that neck is one of science's great, ongoing debates.
In fact, when you start digging into the why of the giraffe's neck, you find yourself in the middle of a fantastic scientific mystery. It's a story all about competition, combat, and some really surprising new twists.
Okay, so you've basically got two main camps in this debate. On one side, you have the classic theory, the one even Charles Darwin was a fan of, the competing browsers idea. It's simple, it's elegant. Longer necks mean you can eat food nobody else can get to. That's a huge advantage. But then there's the other, more dramatic theory, sexual selection. This one says the neck is less about food and more about being a weapon. Males engage in this absolutely brutal combat called necking, using their powerful necks and heavy skulls to fight for dominance and the right to mate.
But just when you think you've got it figured out, science throws a curveball. A recent study found something fascinating. While male giraffes have thicker, more powerful necks built for fighting, it's actually the females who have proportionally longer necks. So why would that be? Well, the thinking is that females have enormous nutritional needs, especially when they're pregnant or nursing. So maybe that classic reaching for food idea was right all along, but the real driving force was the needs of mothers. The debate is definitely not over.
So let's set the debate aside for a second. Because once you have a body this extreme, you create a whole new set of massive problems. And to solve them, the giraffe has evolved into a true biological marvel. Just an incredible collection of engineering solutions. First problem? How do you get blood all the way up that skyscraper of a neck to the brain? You need some serious horsepower. The giraffe's heart is, get this, over 60 centimeters long and weighs about 11 kilograms. It is an absolute beast of an organ, a super pump. And that massive heart generates an incredible amount of force. A giraffe's blood pressure is roughly double that of a healthy person. It has to be that high. Anything less, and the blood just wouldn't make it to the top. But of course, that creates another problem. What happens when it bends down for a drink? The solution is this amazing piece of natural plumbing called the rete mirabile. It's a complex web of blood vessels up in the neck. When a giraffe lowers its head, this network expands to absorb that sudden, massive rush of blood, which stops a catastrophic pressure spike in the brain. Then, when it lifts its head back up, the vessels regulate the flow so the animal doesn't just pass out. It's incredible. And what about its legs? I mean, the fluid pressure down there must be immense. To deal with that, a giraffe's lower legs are wrapped in this super thick, tight layer of skin. It literally functions like a set of high-tech compression socks that a pilot or an athlete would wear, preventing all that blood from pooling at its feet. But this unique body plan also leads to some, well, let's call them inefficiencies. Take the left recurrent laryngeal nerve. It controls the voice box. In us, it takes a tiny detour around an artery near the heart. In a giraffe, that tiny detour means the nerve travels from the brain all the way down its 2-meter neck, loops around the artery, and then travels all the way back up to the larynx. It is a nearly 5-meter trip for a signal that only needed to go a few inches. So we've seen the giraffe as this amazing biological machine. But what about its behavior? For a long, long time, we kind of pictured them as these silent, solitary giants just wandering the savannah alone. Yeah, that picture, as it turns out, is completely wrong. Seriously, the idea that giraffes were mute was a long-held belief. People figured their long necks just couldn't generate enough airflow to make any real sounds. But with more careful observation and some new tech, we've discovered they have a surprisingly rich vocal world. Far from being silent, giraffes have a whole menu of sounds. They snort, they hiss, they moan and grunt. Males make these loud coughing sounds when they're courting, and females will bellow to call for their young. And maybe the most mysterious of all, researchers have recorded them making these low-frequency hums at night. We're only just beginning to understand what that's all about. And their social interactions aren't always so quiet. We mentioned necking before. It's how males establish their social hierarchy.
They swing their necks like these massive muscular clubs, trying to land devastating blows with their heavy skulls and those horn-like bumps called asagons. These fights can be incredibly violent.
But here's where their social lives get even more complex and really challenge our assumptions. Researchers have noticed that after these violent duels, it's not uncommon for the two males to then gently caress and court each other. In fact, male-on-male mounting is observed far more frequently in some populations than heterosexual coupling. It's a really fascinating aspect of their behavior. Now, an animal this strange and beautiful hasn't just fascinated biologists. It has absolutely captivated human beings for thousands and thousands of years. It's become this global symbol of grace, beauty, and the exotic. Our fascination is nothing new. 8,000 years ago, people were carving life-size giraffes into rock in the Sahara. In 46 BC, Julius Caesar brought the first one to Rome, and it absolutely stunned the public. In the 1400s, when a giraffe arrived in China, people thought it might be the mythical Qilin, a creature of good luck. And in the 19th century, a giraffe named Zarafa became a full-blown celebrity in Paris, literally influencing fashion and art. But for all its history, for all its biological wonder, the giraffe is now facing a danger it can't outrun. And here's the scary part. While we've all been focused on saving elephants and rhinos, the giraffe has been quietly, silently slipping away. Let's be really clear about this. The International Union for Conservation of Nature, which is the global authority on this stuff, officially classifies the giraffe species as vulnerable to extinction. And some specific subspecies are in even worse shape, listed as endangered or even critically endangered.
And this chart, this just says it all. Look at these numbers. In just about 30 years, the wild giraffe population crashed from around 155,000 down to under 100,000. That is a drop of nearly 40%. It's what conservationists call a silent extinction, because it's been happening right in front of us, and most of the world hasn't even noticed.
So why is this happening? Well, the reasons are tragically all too familiar. Their homes are being destroyed for farming and development. They're being illegally hunted for their meat. And civil unrest across many of the countries where they live makes conservation work incredibly difficult and dangerous. There's a strange irony here, isn't there? The giraffe has always amazed us because it's so visible, so impossible to miss. And yet, its disappearance has been almost completely invisible to the global community. It really makes you wonder, if an animal this enormous, this iconic, this beloved can vanish without us even noticing, what else are we missing? What will it finally take for us to look up and actually see what's happening?